Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for the segment, we have Mary D'Onofrio, partner at Bessemer Venture Partners, to discuss the Centaur report in which BVP explores where the private cloud economy is headed and uncovers successful strategies that drive top private cloud companies such as ServiceTitan, Calendly, and LaunchDarkly to $100 million. It is great to see you, Mary. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Explain to us what a Centaur is and what makes Centaur companies more rare than a unicorn.
Certainly. So Centaur is a term that my partner Adam Fisher and I at Bessemer Venture Partners coined for a company doing more than 100 million of ARR. When the term unicorn was first coined over a decade ago, it referred to one of only 14 total private companies that exceeded $1 billion valuation. It was a vaunted, very, very exclusive club. But by mid-2022, there were over 1,000 unicorns, and the valuation milestone in and of itself stopped being quite as meaningful. So we created the Centaur alongside the entire team at Bessemer to point companies, investors, and even ourselves towards real value creation milestones, driving revenue, driving that top line ARR, rather than valuation milestones alone. And in our research, across all of the Centaurs we identified, 150 at the time we first coined it, and now 160, we've yet to find a single Centaur that hasn't been an enduring company.
What is going on in the private cloud market?
Well, the value of the private cloud market only continues to grow despite the compression in the public markets. We recently released the Cloud 100 list in partnership with Forbes and Salesforce Ventures, and the total value of that list was actually up to $738 billion, an increase of 43% year over year, which is pretty incredible considering the public market narrative. However, in the context of that public market compression, there's definitely been a decrease in the average multiple paid. For Cloud 100 companies, it went from 34 times in 2021 to 30 times in 2022. But I think just anecdotally, from what we're seeing at Bessemer Growth, we're starting to see deals priced even lower. And just for context setting, the average cloud multiple in the public markets is 9x. So understandably, the private markets are starting to underwrite to that eventual exit.
Are there any parallels to the early 2000s?
I think in the early 2000s, you had some companies that truly weren't performing. And now there are macro factors at play: inflation and central bank activity, a war, supply chain uncertainty. But the underlying performance of cloud companies today is very strong. In the public markets, the average cloud company is growing 35% year over year. And in the Cloud 100, the average growth rate actually accelerated to 100% year over year. I think what's changed more so than anything is the macro environment and the market's valuation of these companies. But the fundamentals right now, at least, have continued to stay very strong.
How does Bessemer work with clients to help cloud companies achieve Centaur status?
Well, there are many ways of becoming a Centaur, as we point out in the report. Adding second acts to your product roadmap, which is something that our company ServiceTitan did, going from kind of user base in residential plumbing and extending to HVAC and electrical and other adjacencies, expanding geographies, or very smart extensions of product roadmap, which is something that our company LaunchDarkly did, thinking about how to extend and deepen within their existing customers. As board members and advisors at Bessemer, we do our best to partner with companies on their journeys and lend them the right advice at the right time. And we also open up our extensive, 500 plus company network and associated number of executives to help companies to accelerate their learning.
Yeah, I'm sure that experience is certainly appreciated. Cloud founders are entrepreneurs, and unlike any others, which is why BVP covered 3 Centaur studies, which ServiceTitan, Calendly, and LaunchDarkly. What makes those companies successful case studies?
I think they point out just the variety of ways that you can actually achieve Centaur status, how you can get to that $100 million milestone. As I was mentioning, ServiceTitan was really thoughtful in how they structured what we'll call a second act, identifying really strong resonance in a core market, residential plumbing, and then recognizing the ability to expand into adjacencies and even to deepen within residential plumbing by adding additional product components. LaunchDarkly really combined market evangelism and product excellence, serving their core user base and expanding over time. And Calendly did it through bootstrapping and using revenue as a fuel for growth, and then combining that financing strategy with strong PLG roots to drive customer uptake. And so I think these three are very successful because they obviously hit the milestone. They did it in a variety of ways, but they did it in ways that was very, very true to the companies themselves, the user base that they serve, and the product that they built.
And what are other examples of today's cloud centaurs?
So with the Cloud 100, we were really excited to be able to celebrate 47 companies on the list that had publicly announced that they had hit a $100 million milestone. These include kind of more household names like Canva and Airtable that many of us are familiar with, and also more technical names like Zapier, Algolia, and Border. And we were thrilled to be able to celebrate the revenue milestone of all of these centaurs.
And finally, Mary, where can one learn more about how to become a centaur?
Bessemer has a lot of resources here. The recently released Centaur report, which you were nice enough to highlight, that accompanied the Cloud 100 release last week. And you can also reference bvp.com/Centaur for more.
All right, Mary, we appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.